On this episode of the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast, we'll be taking a look inside a very, very interesting week in the National Football League, along with CJ's college football breakdown, all that and so much more. That's coming your way next on the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast.
Oh, indeed. I'm glad you connected. This is Dave Johnson, voice of the Washington Wizards. You have connected to the right place because you are listening to my man, Josh Kirby on Sports podcast.
All righty, episode 14 of the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. I have with me my man, CJ. CJ, what's going on, buddy?
Josh, this past weekend of football was crazy, man. And it ended with probably one of the best games we've ever seen.
Okay. First off, why are you getting so far ahead in the show? We got to keep the suspense on this podcast, okay? So don't get far ahead of yourself.
Sorry.
And also, we have a special guest, the legendary brother of CJ Mint here, Patrick. What's up, man?
I don't know about legendary, but what's up, Josh?
Oh man, yeah, it's great to be on the It's great for you to be on the podcast with us. Third member of our team tonight. We're with two microphones, so hopefully this audio sounds great. But Patrick, welcome to the podcast. I'm sure you're going to have a lot to talk about. So, Patrick, you were quarterback with Sharando for 4 years, 3 years on varsity.
3 years on varsity, and I started 2 of them.
Yep. Yeah, and pretty great quarterback. Tied a few records in the record book and played some great football at his times with Sharando. Now you're at JMU now, correct?
Yes.
Yep. How's that going?
I got no complaints. It's a good school.
Just like his brother. You just wish you could have been starting quarterback there.
No, I don't know about all that. I decided not to play before I was even done playing. So I'm comfortable with where I'm at in terms of playing. So I got no complaints.
This man was a legend at Sharando High School. So Patrick, let's get it started. And CJ, let's get it started. Week 11 in the National Football League starts off with a sort of exciting game, very close game. The Seattle Seahawks over the Green Bay Packers, 27-24.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers did basically everything he could this game. 21 of 30 for 332 yards and 2 touchdowns. And at the end of the day, though, the Seahawks have the number 1 rushing offense this season. It's crazy. A year ago, they were considered the worst rushing offense of the league. And people were saying, could you please bring back Beast Mode? Could you please bring him back? But Beast Mode's now in Oakland, and, man, they're surviving without him now, it seems like. And on top of that, you're in Seattle. This is a tough environment to win in regardless of what happens. And Aaron Rodgers did all he could, and they lost 27-24.
Well, I really thought this was a game that Green Bay could have won because of Aaron Rodgers. But Russell Wilson, he did a pretty good job. No interceptions, 225 yards on the day with 2 touchdowns. And their running game wasn't so eye-popping. Carson with under 100 yards. But, I mean, pretty good for the Seahawks. But Green Bay on the other side, 48 total yards rushing.
Yep.
That right there.
That's going to lose you the game.
Yep.
But the Seahawks have a good defense anyway.
Yep.
So Bobby Wagner is probably, in my opinion, the second best linebacker in the league right now behind Luke Kuechly. But he still anchors that defense, and they know how to play. So that's why they have such a good defense. But the Packers don't have the best trio of running backs right now, especially since Ty Montgomery went to the Ravens, even though they still didn't even trust him that much. I don't understand why, but still.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure of that trade. I haven't seen him play that much.
Yeah, exactly. And Lamar Jackson, I mean, we saw what happened. He got
getting
the ball
off topic
35
again.
5 carries, though.
Getting off topic again. We're going to get to that Lamar Jackson. But anyways, that's 27-24, Seattle over Green Bay. Any thoughts on that, Patrick? All right. Patrick's just gonna chime in whenever, I guess. So, okay, CJ, yeah, let's go straight to that Ravens game because that's the next one I did want to talk about. Joe Flacco, he is out with a hip injury, and they trust Lamar Jackson to get the job done.
Over RG3, yep.
Over RG3, of course. And I was hoping to see RG3 play just so I could watch the game because I wanted to see how he would do, but I trust John Harbaugh for not putting him in because he probably could have torn ACL or something again. You never know. But
and also, John's on the hot seat, too. He is on the hot seat right now.
Yep, the 5-5 Baltimore Ravens on the hot seat. Patrick, can they turn it around?
You know, with John Harbaugh being on the hot seat, I thought it was actually pretty gutsy to go with Lamar Jackson. I mean, he didn't practice on a very important day during the week, missing those reps, but still deciding to go with him. But at the same time, whether it's gutsy or not, the energy that Lamar Jackson brings to your team is incredible. His skill set brings life to that offense. That Joe Flacco, and no, don't get me wrong, Joe Flacco has been very good for the Ravens over his career there in Baltimore. However, Lamar Jackson gives you that spark that the city's been missing. His rushing ability. He's got a decent arm. Now, I had my doubts with him coming out of the draft, but whether he had a great preseason, he's been consistent every time he's come in with his own personnel there in Baltimore. And I thought it was I liked RG3 coming in the entire week when they were talking about it. But the life that he brought to that offense that they so desperately needed, especially with the great defense that Baltimore has, I thought it gave a great spark to Baltimore. And they looked pretty good. Lamar Jackson looked really good.
Yeah, and another thing, too, his stats weren't that eye-popping.
No,
13 for 19, only 150 yards and an interception. But on the ground, he got the job done. Lamar Jackson is a great rushing quarterback. I'm sorry. To say this, John Harbaugh has the trust to put him in on wildcat plays and stuff like that. Like, to give him reps playing in games when Joe Flacco was starting, similar to Taysom Hill with New Orleans. So I feel like that was a big confidence booster as well. But Lamar Jackson got the job done on the ground, and you can see here 265 yards rushing total for the Ravens. Edwards with 17 carries, 115 yards. But Lamar Jackson was the lead rusher in that game. And that got the job done because Lamar Jackson knows what to do with the football on the ground.
The only thing I'm going to say to this is that it was against the Bengals. In terms of defense, they are the worst defense in the NFL. Even after hiring Hugh Jackson, they are still the worst defense in the NFL. It doesn't matter if they have one of the dirtiest players on their defense, but he is a great football player in Vontaze Burfict. But on top of everything that happened, Lamar Jackson, if he wants to survive in the NFL, he has got to take it down a notch with the amount of carries that he wants to rush the ball. Michael Vick said it best. He said that late in his career, he wished that he would have stopped running the ball as much as he did because when he tried to play on the back end of his career, he just didn't have that oomph anymore. Now, of course, he still said, hey, I'll flat out beat you in a race, no question. But to survive in the NFL, he knew when to take those chances to run. Lamar Jackson, how many carries did you say he had?
27.
27 carries as a quarterback? That's not the best idea. Now, he's a rookie, of course, that's true. So he doesn't know the whole idea of the NFL. But a quarterback of his size and a quarterback of what he is, it resembles RG3 back when he was a rookie.
Yes, exactly. I was about to chime in and say, just like RG3, he would risk himself as a rookie. And
look what happened.
He tore his ACL. And then after that, his career was ruined in Washington, pretty much because of the fact that he was put into a system trying to learn how to be a pocket passer, trying to slide. And that just wasn't for him. And that's what led to his demise in Washington.
Yeah, and that's a lot of NFL systems. Of course, coaches, they want that great running back, quarterback, just like Cam Newton. There's a difference between Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson. Cam Newton is 260 pounds. The man is a giant. But the thing for him is that he can be a pocket passer when he needs to be. And I just don't see that with Lamar Jackson. They got the win. They knew what they needed to do to get this win, even though it was against the Bengals, but they still got it done.
Yeah, but I'm hoping with Lamar Jackson it doesn't become the end result like RG3.
No, absolutely not.
Lamar Jackson is a great player, and I think if he is managed the right way in game situations, once he gets the reins as a starter, he will do great things. All right, that's our take on the Ravens and Bengals. The Ravens beat the Bengals 24-21. The Ravens are 5-5 on the season, along with the Cincinnati Bengals. And let's take a look at the Steelers' comeback win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Before you say anything, 5 interceptions, 2 got called back. Just so you don't get mad at me like you did on the live stream, but I know
those don't go into the stat book, Josh.
Yeah, but I know you're going to have a lot to say about this game. Let's hear your take on the Steelers and Jaguars.
There are teams that have teams' numbers. When you play against a team, it's just like when Sharando plays Martinsburg. Martinsburg has their number, and they fight them every single game. And on top of that, the Steelers versus the Jaguars always have the Steelers' number. They always do. And it happened twice last year where they got thumped in the regular season, and then they went to the postseason. Pittsburgh scored 42 points and still lost. And now this time, you're down 16-0. Most coaches would say, all right, we're going to try and just run the ball here and see if we can get something with James Conner. But if nothing happens, this game's over with. That's not Mike Tomlin, though. And everything that Mike Tomlin has gone through this season, everything that he has gone through with the whole Le'Veon Bell situation and just taking it like a champion and basically saying, hey, I don't give a crap what you say. We're going to play football every single week. And especially this week when the whole situation ended, people were still talking about it and saying, well, if you had Le'Veon Bell, James Conner wouldn't have dropped that wide open wheel route. It's like, did we still win the game? Yes, we did. We came back from 16 down in the third quarter to win it against a great defense in Jacksonville. Jalen Ramsey, he had Antonio Brown's number until the end of the game when it mattered. And then Big Ben reminds me of Super Bowl 40 when he ran for a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
That.
But the Steelers, they're a different team this year, it looks like. If you look at the stats from when the Steelers played the Jaguars in the second half, the Steelers held the Jaguars to -3 rushing yards in the second half because they knew that Blake Bortles can't throw the ball on him. He can't. Leonard Fournette got the ball 28 times for 95 rushing yards, 28 times. And Keith Butler basically said to his team, hey, just look for the run. Blake Bortles cannot pass against you guys. And that's what happened in the second half. And Big Ben, he had to score twice on him, and the defense had to stop him twice, and they did. And they came away with a very, very good win against a team who always has the Steelers' number. The Jaguars always have the Steelers' number. And now they got to go on the road again to play Denver this week at Mile High.
Yeah, well, my take on that situation was Big Ben, he didn't do that good in that game, you know, with the 3 interceptions. But the team had his back to the very last play. And they had faith and confidence, and he ended up making the game-winning play. And that's what I love about that team, because the Steelers had faith. They were behind Ben to the very last play, and he got the job done. Everything else was in the past. There's 3 interceptions in the past. He was just the team stood behind him and they got the job done.
There's looking at these stats. I didn't watch most of the game, so this is just from my own take of it. But there's 3 stats that pop out at me on the Jaguars side of the ball. They only had 64 passing yards. Their third down efficiency is 6 out of 18, so they're only getting 1 out of 3 third downs. And with 3 turnovers, that's not acceptable. They have 111 penalty yards. So you're behind the chains, or you're shooting yourself in the foot. And they had the ball for 37 minutes. You have the ball for almost 2/3 of the game. How are you losing? How are you blowing that? And you hold the Steelers to 26 rushing yards? 26.
That's
26.
not going to get the job done.
That's not even 3 first downs. So at Jacksonville, on the offensive side of the ball, because I'm an offensive guy, there's got to be something that you can do differently. There's got to be something different. Your rushing attack is still, especially with Leonard Fournette, a formidable threat. It is great because you have Carlos Hyde that you even added during the season. He adds a speed dynamic to Fournette's power game. TJ Yeldon's always been consistent. What's the problem? You have decent receivers. It's not like they have problems catching the ball. What's the problem? Your offensive line can run block. If they can run block, they can pass block. So what's the issue here? You just spent, I'm not sure on the details, 5 years on a quarterback that was already inconsistent, and you knew that. So for me, it's Blake Bortles. He cannot get it done when it counts. He looks great at times, and then other times he just looks like he shouldn't be worth 5 years, multi-million-dollar contract guy. He just doesn't, and he hasn't shown that.
Yeah, like I've said before, the Jaguars, in my opinion, are a very inconsistent team this season, and I still stand by it. And I agree with Patrick. I think it has to fall on Blake Bortles.
Well, I also want to touch on what Patrick said on the offensive line. They have lost some players to that offensive line. Cam Robinson, the second-round draft pick out of Alabama, he's done for the year. He's on injured reserve, and so they are basically on their 4th left tackle right now. Their offensive line has completely shifted. That's the big difference from last year to this year. This isn't the same team because the dynamic has shifted. They have a good running attack, but that offensive line is just falling apart. And still, what Patrick said, you got to put pressure on Blake Bortles because 10 for 18, you threw the ball 18 times and that's it.
No touchdowns and no interceptions either.
Ben Roethlisberger threw the ball 47 times. 47 times Ben Roethlisberger threw the ball. And 43 rushing attempts for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You know Keith Butler was saying, just watch for the run. Just watch for the run, please, because they are not going to throw the ball. And this isn't the same Jacksonville team. You can't always rely on your defense. You just can't. Sure, you got great players. Malik Jackson's hurt, though, for that D-line for Jacksonville. So you're losing a defensive captain. You just traded Dante Fowler to the Rams. You're losing players left and right here that are not making this the same team. And what did I say at the beginning of the year? After you beat the Patriots, your season's done, man. You don't have to worry about anything. We just beat the AFC champs. We don't have to worry about anything. So I'm just adding on a little bit more to any Jacksonville fans out there that this is just not the same team that you had last year. This just
exactly. I 100% agree with that. All right. Pittsburgh, 20-16. I could probably hear CJ yelling from his house when I saw the end of that game. So Pittsburgh improves to 7-2-1 on the season. Jacksonville, 3-7. Next up on the list, the Cowboys and the Falcons. The Cowboys, I was hoping they lose. It was back
Go
and
figure, people.
yeah, but back and forth game. I was following it on my phone, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then Dak Prescott produces a game-winning drive. Brett Maher with a game-winning kick in Alabama. Dallas improves to 5-5 on the season with a 22-19 win.
Establish the run game, man. Zeke Elliott just got, eating his cereal, man. 23 carries, 122 yards. He's eating, and he's back finally. I mean, it took him a while to get him back, but 22-19 against a very struggling Atlanta team. But
Who beat the Redskins?
yes, they did beat the Redskins. It still speaks volumes about you guys because they also lost to the Browns a week ago as well. But Zeke Elliott, it's good to see him eating again because he's good for the NFL. He really is.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. But I was hoping that was a game they'd lose. Both teams are playing under what I thought they'd be this year. And the NFC East stinks so far. And Dallas is 5-5. The Eagles are under 500. Patrick's probably upset about that. We'll get into that later. But, geez, what is wrong with both these teams?
Well, I think in the NFC East, most of the teams are trying to find out who they are. And especially late in the season, that can be devastating. And so it's the same thing with Philly. I think Dallas, the past couple weeks, have started to figure out who they are. And they're finally getting back to their roots. I mean, you drafted Ezekiel Elliott for a reason, to establish a run game. And especially with a rookie quarterback who was replacing a longtime loved veteran in Dallas. And for a long time, especially early in this year and most of last year, most teams tried to stop the run of Ezekiel Elliott. And I think the Cowboys got away from that way too quickly. I still believe Ezekiel Elliott is still one of the top backs in the league. And especially even with their banged up line, they're still one of the better lines in the league. And with his skill set, you can still establish a run game. And that helps Dak Prescott even more because that takes the weight off of his shoulders, because you've seen what happens when the weight of a game is placed on his shoulders. He makes bad decisions. He tries to play the game in his own hands, and he feels like he has to do way too much way too soon. And that can cause him turnovers and bad decisions. Establishing a run game early and having a game plan set around the guy that got you to be successful in the first place is huge for a team. In the past 2 weeks, they've established a run game. Against the Eagles, they ran all over their defense. And again, with Atlanta, I mean, they had 132 rushing yards. That's great. Anything over 100 rushing yards in a game is great. Establishing a running game, because that sets you up on first and second down. It makes your third downs easier. It keeps you ahead of the chains. And that can make or break a quarterback. A quarterback dealing with 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, that's so much easier than trying to throw on first and second down when you're not prepared for it. And that can make a quarterback way more concerned with other distractions than dealing with a 3rd and 6, a 3rd and 12. An offensive play caller does not have a play for that. He just doesn't. And so when Dak Prescott can deal with a 3rd and 4, they're way more successful, and that showed.
Yep. So Dallas 5-5 in the NFC East with a 22-19 win over the Atlanta Falcons. I hate to do it, but I'm going to talk about my Redskins now. And man, what a devastating game. Oh my gosh, I just cannot believe I've gotten down to talking about this. The Redskins, 23-21 loss over Houston. Yeah, they're still in first place, but I hated what I saw out there. The first half of the football game, Alex Smith did absolutely terrible. His throws weren't on target. Nothing was happening. I did not like what I was seeing at all. his passes were off target. He threw a pick six, 2 interceptions, 1 pick six, and another was just a terrible throw he forced down the middle of the field. I believe it was to Jordan Reed. But it all ended in a very sad situation where Alex Smith broke his tibia and fibula. And I was like, oh my goodness. I could not believe it. It was the first drive of the third half, and the second half, and oh my god.
This isn't hockey, Josh.
Yeah, the third. Yeah, but anyways, he broke his leg after our offensive line did not give him a single ounce of protection. Like, what was that? He came right up the side and tackled Alex Smith, and that's why he's injured. Our offensive line simply did not protect him that play. And you know what's even crazier? 33 years ago to the day is when Redskins' great quarterback Joe Theismann broke his right tibia and fibula on November 18th, 1985, in a game that Washington lost 23-21 at home. The injury that occurred around the 40-yard line for both quarterbacks. And you know what's crazy? Who was involved? The only 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, Lawrence Taylor, was involved in breaking Joe Theismann's leg. This time, the only other 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, J.J. Watt, was involved. And that's, I'm mind blown by that stat. I mean, that's just crazy to me. But besides the point, we're going to get more into this. But another reason the Redskins lost is they didn't establish the run game. Like Patrick was saying.
Go figure.
Yeah, but 16 carries, only 51 yards for Adrian Peterson. Why aren't we establishing the run game?
It's because you got a banged up offensive line.
Yeah,
there,
our
Josh.
offensive line is terrible. It's getting worse and worse. The injury bug is hitting the Redskins so bad. Alex Smith, before he went out, went 12 for 27, only 135 yards, and 2 interceptions. And when Colt McCoy came in, after Preston Smith made that huge interception, he came in and he lit it up. 6 for 12, 54 yards and a touchdown in about almost 2 quarters. And I'll say he lit it up. And he was about to come back. And the Redskins, I thought they had a shot of winning after that. They retook the lead from Houston for the first time this season. This game. That in my mind just shocked me. And man, I just got to say, we put up a valiant effort, but at the end of the day, Jay Gruden and his terrible play calling couldn't get us maybe 10, 15 yards to get us in field goal range. And he decides to send out Dustin Hopkins for a 63-yard field goal attempt that comes up 5 yards short. That terrible play calling and Alex Smith making poor decisions in the first half, that's what cost the Redskins the game. And I did not like what I saw at all. And Colt McCoy is going to be the starter from now on, which sets him up for another game in Dallas with Colt McCoy starting. If you remember that Monday night game, Colt McCoy produces a game-winning drive in overtime to beat Dallas at home. And the Redskins, another terrible decision, they signed Mark Sanchez as their backup quarterback. And he is going to be in a Redskins uniform for the first time on the 6-year anniversary of the butt fumble. I'm like, how? 33 years ago to the day, Alex Smith breaks his leg on the same day as Joe Theismann 33 years ago. And now this? Like, seriously, I wouldn't have minded the Redskins picking up Colin Kaepernick. I'm not sure if you all agree with that, but I feel like that would have been good. But Mark Sanchez, really? If Colt McCoy goes out, which I'm knocking on wood, I hope he doesn't. I don't know what the Redskins are going to do, but the Redskins, oh my goodness. I'm just hoping Colt McCoy has the same pop he did in the second half, and hopefully the Redskins will pull out a Thanksgiving Day win against Dallas.
I'll try to be as even ground as I can, being an Eagles fan here. But there's two things that I feel like the Redskins need to do. Now, they got some tough sledding ahead. Obviously, with their starting quarterback going down, they have a lot of energy that has swept through the locker room that can take a team down. Number one is establishing Adrian Peterson. There's a reason you brought him in. There is a reason why he is in Washington. You haven't had a run game since Alfred Morris. It has been inconsistent, and it has been very lackluster since he's left and went to Dallas. Can you establish him? Because every time you guys establish a run game with Adrian Peterson, you guys play well. You guys have a lot easier road ahead of you. Alex Smith plays better when he has a better running back that eases the pressure off of his shoulders. Same thing with Colt McCoy, especially with a backup having a run game. You can play action. It takes less pressure off of you. It's the same thing with Dak Prescott. Can you get to 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, where you have a lot more choices for your quarterback? Number 2, Colt McCoy. Can he be consistent? In his past, he has not been consistent. That's why he's a backup. Sure, he won on Monday night in Dallas, and he had a big overtime win, sure. But now...
But that was in 2014.
But
that
that was 8 years ago. He hasn't played hardly at all. So the thing with him is, one, if you cannot establish the run game and a lot is put on your shoulders, can you be generally consistent? Can you not turn over the ball? Can you be a great possession quarterback? I'm not saying that you have to put up a lot of points. That's not the point. Can you hang on to the ball? Can you make smart decisions when it comes down to it? And when the game is put on the line, because it will be a close game, it has to. If you cannot throw the ball around and make big plays, it will be a close game. Can you make smart decisions in crunch time? Can you be consistent? And can you get that run game under control and more consistent than it has been when you guys have been successful? That's all it comes down to. If you guys can do that, there should be no reason why you guys shouldn't beat Dallas. No reason at all, because you guys are in the exact same situation. You have a quarterback that can't handle the pressure of a full-time quarterback job, but you have a run game that's very, very explosive at times and can make you successful. If you guys can do that, there should be no reason at all why you guys shouldn't be successful for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and exactly. Another point about Colt McCoy I'd like to chime in on is he's been with the Redskins for, I don't know, maybe since the RG3 era or sooner. He knows the offense throughout the coaches. And another thing I saw about this game, Colt McCoy can run. I think being under Robert Griffin III with RG3 in Washington, he learned some read option. And I think he can use that to his advantage. He has five carries for 35 yards in that game against Houston. But can he tuck it away and can he throw it? Yeah, they need to learn how to do the play action. Oh my. No, but play action is going to be a key, but Colt McCoy is a runner, and I think he's going to need to use his wheels sometime during the game. No, I thought you were going to chime in, CJ.
No, you guys put it
All right.
point blank. You guys put it point blank.
Man, yep. But my Redskins, other side of the ball, I want to talk about this a little bit. 16 for 24, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. The Houston Texans turned over the ball a lot. There were like 2 fumbles that game, 1 lost fumble, and just one fumble. So, I mean, I think the turnover game was pretty close, but the Redskins shot themselves in the foot the first half. Yeah, and 2 defensive touchdowns for Houston. Like, my goodness. I'm like, and I'm sorry for what happened to Alex Smith, but I'm glad Colt McCoy came in and gave an effort to try to win that game. So, Redskins still atop first place in the NFC East, 6-4, and the Houston Texans are marching right along at 7-3. Thanksgiving next week, the Redskins and the Cowboys. I just can't wait to watch that. Let's see here. The Colts put a beat down on the Titans after the Titans coming in and beating the Patriots.
What the heck, man? What the heck?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what that was about.
I just don't get Tennessee. I really don't. As Stephen A. Smith says, it's blasphemous what this team does. You beat New England by 24 points. 24 points. And you get drubbed by Indianapolis, who isn't a bad team, but to be inconsistent every step of the way. One week, you guys look red hot. You guys are playing very well. And then the next week, you guys just get absolutely rolled over. And Andrew Luck, I know he's a great quarterback, but this is the year that he came back. He threw 3 touchdown passes against you guys. You guys didn't have a chance in this game, it looked like. 23 of 29 for 297 and 3 touchdown passes. Andrew Luck was a difference maker in this game. And on top of that, there was absolutely no pressure. No pressure whatsoever from Tennessee's defense. No sacks, no QB hits, no nothing. Congratulations, you made 62 tackles. Not one of them was for a tackle for loss. Congratulations.
Yeah, but I think Andrew Luck, I saw it in the press conference. He said it perfectly. He said he felt good and he's back after that injury. He's looking like he did when he got drafted. Maybe a little bit of age, but he looked pretty good for 297 yards and 3 touchdowns.
With the Indianapolis Colts, early in the season, it looked like they were still trying to understand that learning curve with Frank Reich. Frank has shown, especially in Philadelphia, that he can be a real difference maker on the offensive side of the ball. And that was a huge struggle for him early in the year, was putting points on the board, turning the ball over, establishing an offensive presence. And the past couple weeks, they've shown real improvement. I mean, Andrew Luck looks incredible. He's not turning over the ball. He's putting the ball in the correct hands. He's being smart with the ball. And then with Tennessee, they continue to shoot themselves in the foot with inconsistency. The best teams in the NFL are consistent. How do you go from beating the all-time most consistent team that we've ever seen to losing to a team that's still trying to find their footing? And not only losing, but you got your rear end kicked in every aspect of the game. I mean, I understand that Tennessee has a new head coach and they're still trying to find themselves. But if you want to be successful in the NFL, you have to be consistent. And I still don't see how you beat the juggernaut of the AFC handedly and then lose to a team that's still trying to find their footing. That inconsistency still boggles me.
Yeah, that's a good point there. So Indianapolis and Tennessee both 5-5 on the year, and as they move the mic around, we're moving on. Let's see here. The Lions and the Panthers. Wow. The Lions, all I had to say was, wow. The Lions came out and beat the Panthers, and the Panthers went for 2 and failed, trying to win instead of tie.
Well, Josh, let me ask you this. What do you both think about that call? That 2-point conversion that ended up costing Carolina.
I think they should win for the tie. That's what I think they should have done.
You go for the 2. Ron Rivera did not trust his defense that entire game, especially after the past couple weeks that they've had. And he did not trust him at the end of the game there. I like the call because you need to get confidence back in this team, and having a good win, it shows balls on your coach, and it really does show that they wanted this win very badly, but they didn't get it. But I still like the call.
Yeah, but another thing is send it to overtime. See what you can do. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of going for 2 when you don't have to, but those gutsy calls are what make the NFL great. It's do or die, and they ended up dying, not converting on that 2-point conversion, and Detroit wins 20-19.
Now, Josh, I understand what you're saying, especially in the NFL and this late in the season when you have to compete with the New Orleans Saints for a division. So if you're not going to win that division, I understand what you're saying. Like, you got to be smart, especially if you want a playoff spot at this point, because now you're 3 games behind. But I have to agree with CJ. I have to. If you look back on it, the only reason they didn't get that 2-point conversion is because Cam Newton didn't set his feet. If he sets his feet and he makes an accurate throw, you win. I agree with the call. It's hard. You can go both ways. You can say, well, I understand you have to play for overtime if you want a better chance at winning, especially with the situation you're in with the division. But with what Ron Rivera said, we're here to win a football game. We're here and we're trying to win right here, right now. We're not worried about what's going on or what's happened. We're here in Detroit right here, right now, and we want to win a football game. So I went for 2. If you have any objections, you talk to me about it. And I love that mindset. We're here right now. You're living in the moment. If you succeed, fantastic. If you lose, well, it's just a learning curve. Because the Panthers are still in great shape. They're 6-4. You're still in great shape. However, you still have to play New Orleans twice. So
that's going to be tough.
That will be very tough, especially with the role that the Saints are on now. So getting back to the Panthers, if you're looking ahead, you go for the tie. If you're living for the here and now, you go for 2 and give it a shot. So I can go both ways, but if I was there for the here and now, I understand where Ron is saying you go for 2.
Yeah, I understand too. And I just think in the long run, you go for the tie. But in that situation, I understand why he went for 2. But, either way, it was a great game, and the Panthers ended up falling short. And another funny point, I'm not sure if it was Theo Riddick or Kerryon Johnson. Somebody blasted Matt Patricia on Twitter for making them practice in the snow. Yeah, I don't know if you heard that at all, but that was just funny. Freaking who? As Patrick screams in the background, "Boo freaking who!" So 20-19 final there, and we're gonna go to a game that Patrick might have a lot to talk about. The Saints blast the Philadelphia Eagles 48-7. Drew Brees, 363 yards, 4 touchdowns, 22 for 30. Carson Wentz, 19 for 33, 156 yards, and 3 interceptions.
The disrespect that the NFL did not give this man a perfect quarterback rating is unbelievable right now. You give him 153.2 and not 158.3. Are you serious? What did he do wrong in this game? But besides that, I mean, Pat, you knew this game was going to be bad to begin with. You just knew that it was.
I knew it too.
The Saints, okay, Josh, the Saints are the best team in the NFL right now. They just are. Clearly, after the Monday night game with the Rams and the Chiefs, but we'll get to that later. But still, clearly, they are the best team in the NFL and the NFC right now as well. And on top of that, I said it to Josh. The best thing about this team is that Drew Brees has a running back tandem that can take the pressure off of him when he needs it. That is the difference maker in this team. 37 carries, 173 yards. That was the thing the past 5 years that Drew Brees did not have. He didn't have Reggie Bush. He didn't have Deuce McAllister. He didn't have Pierre Thomas for a long time. He didn't have a running back tandem that did not give him a good rushing attack. And on top of that, last year, the only reason they lost is because their defensive back missed a tackle in the Minneapolis Miracle happened. That's the only way that the Saints lost last year.
Yeah, and another thing I want to add in, the rushing game, what makes it so great, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, two very great running backs that can get switched in and out in the rushing all the way. Like the difference between the Redskins, they only have one good running back, and that's Adrian Peterson. Nobody else, just Adrian Peterson. But the Saints, they have two. They have two guys that can go in and get the job done, alleviate the pressure off the quarterback.
And on top of that, who in the heck is Traquan Smith? Because Drew Brees is making him look like a star right now. Of course, Michael Thomas is the big man on the receiving core there. But who in the heck is Traquan Smith? Because Drew Brees, 10 catches, 157 yards, and a touchdown. Now, I know it's against your Eagles defense, but he's making him look like a star out there. But I'm sure you have more on why the Eagles are struggling, Pat. But you knew that this game was going to be bad for them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing Pat's take since he is an Eagles fan. The Eagles looking like they're on their Super Bowl hangover.
And I completely agree with you guys. We just don't have an identity like we did last year. Last year we had the underdogs mantra, where we had a baseline energy. We had an energy about us where it was prove everybody wrong. And now this year, to me, it just looks like a bunch of excuses. And I could give you as many excuses as a fan as I want. And whether I like it or not, I have to understand why our team is struggling as a fan. And for me, there's two things. One, we cannot establish a running game. Jay Ajayi is a great talent. Do not get me wrong. Darren Sproles is a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. He is missed. However, our offensive line is mostly intact. We're banged up, yes. But most of the time, our starters are on the field. Where's the consistency that we had last year? We were more banged up last year on the offensive line than we were this year. Where's the consistency? Why don't we have the same running game? And I think that starts up front. And then second, I think personally it goes back to coaching and play calling. I loved Doug Peterson's play calling. I love his aggressiveness. I loved how he just went after people last year. And now I think he's calling a little bit safe, and I think that hurts us, especially it hurts Carson Wentz because he's putting so much more of the weight on his shoulders because he's still young. He's still really young. He still has to rely on a run game, as most quarterbacks do. And so when you only rush 12 times, and we still rushed for 58 yards. We had a higher yards per rush than the Saints. But we don't run the ball. And I understand that comes with situational football, but at the same time, why don't you rush more on first and second down?
Yeah, the problem I'm seeing here, Corey Clement. 2 carries, only 11 yards. Really?
I think we're still trying to find an identity, and that sucks when you're 11 weeks into a season. We still have no idea who we are, because when it comes to year, you have to find a new identity with every team every single year. You have to find who you are. It's the same thing in high school, it's the same thing in college, and it's the same thing in the pros. Who are you going to be? What are you going to stand for? What are you going to do that's going to make you special? And with the Eagles, we still haven't found that. We got Carson Wentz back. That is fantastic. But what made us successful last year was our run game threat, and that helped Nick Foles immensely. But we've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from the run game. We've gotten away from the RPOs. We've gotten away from the play action because we don't trust it, because we get away from it too soon. And I feel like part of the play calling, and I feel like a part of just the coaching in general affects that. So with the Eagles, we're still trying to find an identity this late into the season, and that's killing us in the end.
Yeah, I think you put it on the head there. Yeah, from what I've seen with the Eagles, they are trying to find their identity, and that's not good. And their running game, like, who the heck is this Josh Adams? I've never heard of him, and he's only getting 53 yards. Corey Clement, he's a big name. Why is he only getting 11 yards? 2 carries, 11 yards. That's not going to win you a football game. Establish the run. I say that almost every podcast. That's what the Redskins needed to do, and it looks like here that's what the Eagles needed to do.
Well, in a game that's forever changing, I feel like everybody, especially from a fan's perspective, and maybe even from a coach's perspective, the game, everyone feels like it's turning more into a passing game, and it's been like that for years. So what do you do when it's turning into a passing game? If you can establish a run game in a passing league, you're dangerous. Look at the Saints, for instance. They have a 2-headed monster, Kamara and Ingram. And because they have that threat at a running attack, it creates so many more opportunities for Drew Brees and Michael Thomas. And they're turning into a machine because you have to defend both. Same thing in LA, same thing in Kansas City. And the same thing in Pittsburgh even. With James Conner emerging as a threat, you have to defend both. You have to defend James Conner's run game and even passing attack, and then you have to defend their 2-headed monster at receiver with Brown and Smith-Schuster. So it all comes down to a run game, and for a long time, I thought it was a passing league. And it's not till this year that I'm understanding if you do not have a run attack, your passing game does not mean anything because you have to establish a run game in order to be successful in the passing game.
Yep. And the road ahead for the Eagles, 4 out of the 6 games are division games.
It is very rough. It is very rough, yes.
I mean, you got the Giants, Redskins, Cowboys. 3 division games back to back to back. That's very hard.
Well, I was hoping, especially as a Super Bowl champion, we found ourselves the best in the world. And it sucks to be able to, or not to be able to find ourselves this late into the season because we knew it was going to be tough grading by the time we got to the end of the season. We knew that. And we still haven't found ourselves. And we're still in the middle of that process right in the thick of our season. And it will hurt us and kill us in the end.
Yep. So moving on from that, because Patrick's probably getting all mad about that, but 48-7, the Saints 9-1 on the season, red hot. The Eagles 4-6 in the NFC East. Moving right along. Let's get some. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention this. The Buccaneers bench. Can I say it right? Bench Ryan Fitzpatrick once again, and the Giants beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What's going on here with the Tampa Bay offense and their quarterback situation? Because it seems like there's a different quarterback coming in each and every week.
Dirk Cotter shouldn't be a head coach.
Yeah, I agree with
Dirk
you.
Cotter shouldn't be a head coach. He should be an offense coordinator and stay as an offense coordinator. If you're just going, we should go him the next week and this guy the next week and this guy the next. No, your defense is also just terrible. I mean, if you're putting up that many yards with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston, your defense has got to stop somebody. Your defense has got to stop somebody. As you said, the Buccaneers versus the Redskins, you guys had 16 points. Ryan Fitzpatrick had over 400 yards, and they still just – the Redskins put up points on him still.
Yep, and Ryan Fitzpatrick with 3 interceptions before Dirk Cutter changes his mind again and goes with Jameis Winston. That's a quarterback controversy that should be fixed in Tampa Bay. And I think it all goes back to head coaching. I think he's not doing a good job, and Tampa Bay needs a head coach. Look at Eli Manning, 17 for 18, 231 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the running game was established, 27 carries, 142 yards for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, that's because you have Saquon Barkley there. You're going to have a good running back to at least hand the ball off to, and you're going to be able to trust him with the ball.
Yeah. So the Giants, they're winning a few games. Do you think their season's turning around? Like, I know, obviously, playoffs are probably out of the question, or could it with how bad the NFC East sucks? But, with Pat Shurmur and a 3-7 record, are the Giants going the right direction? Like they were, like from last year to this year, are they going in the right direction?
I think so. I think they're getting more into their run game. We've talked about this the entire podcast. Everything revolves around a run game. And especially with an Eli Manning that's getting older and has shown that he's getting a little bit more inconsistent than he has been. That's why you drafted Saquon Barkley in the first place, is to find a run game. Now, their offensive line still has the same struggles as they have in the past, and they're inconsistent as ever. But you have that threat. You have that playmaker at your running back position. You have a quarterback that is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Now, we can talk trash about Eli Manning all day long. But at the end of the day, he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and he's a good quarterback. Can you take the pressure off of his shoulders as he gets older? And I think Saquon Barkley has shown that he can do that.
Now, let me ask you something here. Is it safe to say this might be Eli Manning's last year in the league?
I think it depends. They've drafted multiple quarterbacks over the past 2 years. They had Webb, and then they had the Richmond guy.
Who got a DUI.
Yes, and he's shown some off-the-field issues. However, if you can find consistency in the draft in terms of your linemen, can you make off-season choices that can help your offensive line? Because your defense isn't that bad. I mean, if you think about Tampa Bay's offense has been very good. They just haven't been able to find consistency at the quarterback position. So that's their own issue. But New York's defense is not terrible. They've been inconsistent at times, sure. But they have the talent. So if you can find consistency on the offensive line side of things, then sure. I don't see why Eli Manning couldn't play for a couple more years at least.
Yeah. Great stuff there. Obviously, yeah, Eli is a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. And I think the Giants are heading in the right direction. But with a first-year head coach after firing Ben McAdoo, yeah, Pat Shurmur just needs to learn the system. And I think the Giants could be a threat in a few years with Saquon Barkley progressing more as he gets older and older and more established in the system. And with their quarterback position, I mean, I don't see why Manning can't stay a couple more years. He just has to get a good offensive line and just alleviate the run. We've been saying this all podcast, but the Giants 38, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 35. Giants are 3-7 in the NFC East. So, moving on, the Broncos and the Chargers. The Chargers looked really like they've been really good lately, but the 4-5 Broncos come in and beat them. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they came in and shocked Los Angeles. Now Los Angeles, they're going to have a tough road coming up here in a couple of weeks as well. They're going to have to play Pittsburgh coming up here very soon. That was not a good loss for them because they have got to be able to hunker down here because they're going to have a tough schedule coming up here in a couple of weeks. And this is surprising, too, because Case Keenum, he didn't throw a touchdown pass. All rushing touchdowns for the Denver Broncos beating the Chargers.
Yeah, and are the Chargers the real deal in this situation? Like 7-3, they, from what I've seen, they've looked good. But are they the real deal in an AFC playoff contender?
No, I wouldn't say they're not, because on top of this, they're in the same division as Kansas City. And one way or another, Kansas City is going to be the top seed in that division. And they're going to have to be the wild card spot. And if they can even get past the wild card spot, they may have to face their division rival in Kansas City.
All righty. Well, moving on from that, unless Patrick. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Jumping the gun.
So when it comes to the Chargers, let me pull it up here. There's just a couple stats that pop out with me of why the Chargers lost. I mean, you have 14 penalties for 120 yards. Where was another one? And then you have 2 turnovers to none. I mean, Case Keenum, for once, didn't have an issue turning over the ball. And that's fantastic. And that's what the Broncos need from him. And with the Chargers turning over the ball and getting behind the chains and hurting and shooting themselves in the foot, I mean, you got to look. If you're going to compete in an AFC with the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Patriots, you can't shoot yourselves in the foot. You just can't. If you get a step behind either one of those teams, then you're going to get beat, period. And especially against an inferior team of Denver, which you should have won. You should have won. You were winning most of the game. You were winning handedly most of the game. If you shoot yourselves in the foot, the Patriots will for sure come back with Brady. The Steelers, that's more of a who's going to score the most points kind of thing. And then with the Chiefs, if you shoot yourselves in the foot, good luck keeping up with them. It's just not going to happen. They're a great team. I think they have a great record, and they'll probably make the playoffs. But can they compete with those 3 teams? I just don't think they can.
Yep. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. The Denver Broncos win it 23-22. And we're not even going to talk about this next game. As I've said before, these 2 teams are so bad that they made the game a close game. The Oakland Raiders over the Arizona Cardinals, 23-21. I'm not going to even look at it because Josh Rosen's stats are atrocious, and I'm just not going to talk about it. But 23-21, a game I will talk about. The Bears are red hot. Khalil Mack is red hot. And the Bears got to Kirk Cousins in the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the night. What a game for the Bears, first off, in a division game. And they're rolling red hot at 7-3 on the year, looking for that playoff spot. They haven't been to the playoffs in quite a while. And Mitchell Trubisky is looking good. Matt Nagy as a coach, he's doing great. The Bears are doing great. Your thoughts, CJ?
Well, this wasn't even that good of a game for Trubisky. He threw 2 picks, only had 1 touchdown. But the biggest thing, the most exciting thing about this team is that defense. When they're on the field, you just have to watch yourself. I'm serious. That defensive line, Akeem Hicks, Leonard Floyd, Khalil Mack, Aaron Lynch, all those guys, that defensive front is unstoppable right now. And on top of that, this was on primetime football. And so the whole country is like, okay, let's see what the Bears got. And, man, they made Kirk Cousins look like a fool. Eddie Jackson and Adrian Amos both with interceptions against Kirk Cousins. One return for a touchdown.
Yeah.
That was incredible because when I saw I went to a Soldier Field game a couple years ago back when they played the Lions, and that place was packed. And for the past couple years, the Bears have not been the same team. They just haven't. They've gotten away from what they are, the monsters of the Midway, the defense that has been there, the 85 Bears known for defense. And now Khalil Mack, he came to the right team. He came to a team that wants to be good on defense and has the players on all three phases of the defense, defensive front, secondary, and linebackers. Every single player on that defense is a great player. And the Bears, they beat a good team in Minnesota because the Bears have struggled in this division for the past couple of years. Like I said on the podcast, the past 2 years, the Bears have won 8 games. This year, they've won 7 in one season. They've almost equaled their total from the past 2 years. It's just like Cleveland. They've already doubled their total. Actually, they've tripled it. So the Bears, they're rolling hot, and they're going to continue because I'm telling you, once Green Bay comes back to Soldier Field, that's going to be a bad game for Green Bay because they know that game and what happened in Week 1 against Green Bay, and they know that they're going to watch that film and say, how'd we lose this, guys? How did we lose this?
And they're going to come back.
And they're going to make Aaron Rodgers pay when he comes to Soldier Field. So,
yeah, I mean, what I have to say about the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, he's really not looking good. I thought he'd come in for Minnesota, do great things, and the Vikings would march their way into the playoffs. But week by week, I'm starting to think less and less that my prediction is still correct. And like Kirk Cousins, I just don't think he's that clutch against good teams.
I'm also going to steal the words right out of your mouth. There is no run game this past game for the Vikings. 14 carries for 22 yards, 1.6 yards a carry for the Minnesota Vikings. On top of that, Kirk Cousins threw the ball 46 times. Yeah, you're going to try that on the Bears defense? One of them was returned for a touchdown, so good job on that. Yeah, you ain't going to win games deep into the playoffs with no running attack. You have Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray. You have a dynamic duo right there. But guess what? I will say this. You are not going to be able to run the ball against the Chicago Bears because they are the number 1 rush defense in the NFL right now. But you still have to establish some sort of run game. You only tried it 14 times. Only 9 times to Dalvin Cook. One of them was Kirk Cousins. But, no, the Minnesota Vikings, they're a good team. They have a great defense. Harrison Smith still anchors that defense. But the Chicago Bears, they're a good team, and they're going to keep going on because just wait till next year for these boys. I'm telling you, once Trubisky finds himself with Matt Nagy, he's going to be unstoppable next year with this team. They just are.
These rushing stats for Minnesota, they are really disgusting to me. Like, Dalvin Cook, only 12 yards. Latavius Murray, only 5 yards. I mean, we've been saying this all podcast. Establish the run game. And if you don't establish the run game, good things aren't going to come from it. And the Vikings found this out. Like, how can a team run with only 22 rushing yards? I don't understand how they don't practice this. And, like, just, man, that's just sickening. Only 22 yards? Really?
I think you're right. I think that the Chicago Bears flexed their muscles a little bit. Khalil Mack, even slightly injured, is still wreaking havoc. Like, you still have to pay attention to him. And with Danny Trevathan, Hakeem Hicks looks great, Roquan Smith, you have so many different people. You have so many people that can cause you issues. And that makes Khalil Mack's situation even better. Now, I will say this with the Chicago Bears. The one issue that they have going forward is, can you be consistent with Mitchell Trubisky? He did get banged up in this game. However, he still turned the ball over twice. Can he make the big play in the right moments? Can he do that? Because you have two great running backs, Jordan Howard and Cohen. Because those guys are going to make your life so much easier. Can he be consistent? There's been some games where he has gone under 50%, like against the New England Patriots. He was under 50% passing in a game where he needed to be consistent, and he wasn't. So going forward, if you're going to compete in this NFC, because you have the defense to do it, you have the defense to slow down the Saints. I'm not saying that you can keep up with them, but you can slow them down. Same thing with the Rams. Can you slow those guys down? Can you at least put yourself in a position where you can get a couple extra possessions a game and possibly put them away? You have the defense to do that. However, do you have the quarterback that can be consistent enough to do that? And I think CJ's right. I feel like in his first season under this new head coach and under this new system, there's only positives ahead. However, if you're going to make this season count right here, right now, he has to be consistent. If he can be consistent with the defense surrounding him, there's nothing but positives for the Bears. If he's inconsistent, there's just going to be issues this season.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And you say it perfectly because you were a former quarterback. So some of this stuff relates to you.
And this actually ties into the final game, that there was actually defense in this game to be excited about. I mean, we'll jump into the next segment here with the Chiefs versus Rams. There was absolutely no defense in that game. Complete overhaul from what the Sunday night to the Monday night game was, but still an instant classic to watch. The Chiefs versus the Rams.
Are you kidding me? I was going to come in with the best intro to this next segment on the Chiefs and the Rams, and you just steal my spotlight.
We hyped this game up this whole week, and on top of that, it lived up to every expectation. 105 points were scored in this game. Over 1,000 yards of total offense. And the Rams pulled it out, like I said they would.
Okay. This was the game of the year. Hands down, I don't care about the rest of this season, the season past. This was the game of the year. The highest scoring Monday Night Football game. The highest scoring NFL game, period, I think. They moved the game from Mexico back up to Los Angeles after field conditions were terrible. And wow, what a game. I'm sorry, I stayed up till halftime. What I've seen was pretty good.
Us here on the West Coast, man, that lasts till midnight. We got to go to bed at some point.
Yeah, I had to work early, so I recorded the rest of the game. I'm hoping to watch the rest of it tonight.
You're going to be,
you're
going to be excited. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but I could tell by the final score when I woke up that it was a shootout to the very end. Two very great quarterbacks. Pat Mahomes. 478 yards. 478 yards. 6 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. But that's because the Rams' defense was on fire. Jared Goff, 413 yards and 4 touchdowns. And passing in this game was incredible. Like, the passing was so much, you didn't even need a run game. Kansas City, 98 total rushing yards. Los Angeles, 76 total rushing yards. But did that matter in this game? No, surprisingly not. Because 54-51, both teams were putting up points. Back and forth, back and forth. And the Rams, they're the better team. But both of these teams are going to make it deep into the playoffs. And this just goes to show a playoff picture for the AFC and the NFC. This was a great game, the game of the year.
Well, I'm going to counteract your point and say that Kansas City is not going to make a deep run to the playoffs with this defense. They just aren't. I don't understand that when I tweeted this morning how people were saying there was great defense last night. Where? Yeah, sure, you got some defensive touchdowns, but you still scored 51 points and you lost. You lost when you scored half of 100 points. And on top of that, you are the number 30th ranked defense right now in the league. The 30th ranked defense. You're only 2 better than Cincinnati, so that's good for you. But on top of that, you knew that this was just going to be a bloodbath. You just knew that both of these offenses, but it just goes to show that this Chiefs offense is for real, and they are the real deal. Patrick Mahomes is the real deal. He may have thrown 3 interceptions, but he still kept fighting his team back and back and back. And on top of that, this was a good Rams defense. I don't know what happened, but you just have to expect that this Chiefs offense is for real. And my final point to this game is that, as I said, this Chiefs team, you cannot rely on outscoring opponents. My brother said it best. Your luck will run out eventually. And it has. It ran out against the Patriots, and it ran out against the Rams. The Patriots are an AFC team, and you may find them once again. And this is what college coaches always say. Oh, we'll outscore them. Oklahoma is the epitome of that statement. Oh, we'll just outscore them. We know our defense is terrible. We'll just outscore them. And that is not going to win you football games. It just isn't. And it clearly proved right here. Good on the Kansas City Chiefs offense, but you guys will not make it to the Super Bowl with that defense. You just can't. You just cannot prove yourself by saying, oh, we'll just outscore people. It's okay.
Yeah, it was more of an offensive game, but as I've said before, defense wins championships.
It does. And coming from an offensive guy, CJ and I've talked for years on this. It took me a long time to understand why defense is so critical if you want to be successful in the long run. With the Chiefs, you scored 51 points. That's fantastic. But at the end of the day, you lost. And in the NFL, that's all that matters. If you win or lose. And there's a couple stats that really jump out at me and why, if you want to beat the Patriots, that won't happen. Number one, penalties. You had 13 penalties for 135 yards. If you do that against the Patriots, Brady's going to make you pay for it because you won't put points on the board. Belichick's going to figure you out, and they're going to get back, and they're going to give the ball back to Brady. Number two, you had 5 turnovers. You were -3 in turnovers. That's like a 99% chance you're going to lose. 5 turnovers and over 130 yards in penalties. If you do that against the Patriots and the Steelers, you can kiss your luck goodbye, because I know that both of those teams have better defenses than the Rams right now in terms of consistency. So you pick your poison. I'm not worried about LA. I'm not worried about New Orleans, because at the end of the day, you will not see one of those teams unless you beat Brady or Pittsburgh.
Man, yeah, so pretty much, can we all agree this was probably the game of the year, though?
Yeah, absolutely. But my final stat that I do want to pull out for this game was what Patrick talked about, and how the difference between these teams is the discipline that these teams offer. When the Kansas City Chiefs played the New England Patriots, New England beat them with discipline. That was the game where New England didn't have a single penalty in the game. 0 penalties for 0 yards.
I still couldn't believe that.
0 penalties. Disciplined and fundamentally sound football team on both sides of the ball. Sure, you only won by 3, but you kept your head, and that's what allowed the Patriots to win that game. Now, in this game, man, there are so many different factors that happen, but 13 penalties, you're undisciplined. You're a defense that just doesn't Like I said, oh, it's okay. We'll outscore them. Just go out there and play. That's all I can read from this in terms of the Chiefs defense. You guys can't keep your head. You have to hold everybody because you know that the Rams receivers are going to run by you. You have to basically make all these stupid penalties that cost the teams to allow to score on you. I don't know what else to say. You guys will not make a run into the playoffs with this defense.
Yeah, in that first half, I really saw a lot of penalties that were called on the Chiefs, and I just think it was stupid, totally avoidable, and you cannot say you're going to outscore a team. You have to use your defense. As I said before, defense wins championships. And that is our 80-minute NFL take. Oh, my goodness. Like, that was crazy. But looking on to Week 12, here we go. Thanksgiving Day, 3 games. You ready for Turkey Day, boys? We got the Bears and Lions. Whew. That's going to be Mitch Trubisky all day, I think. And then after that, my Redskins against the Cowboys. I'm just hoping Colt McCoy can do something there. I'm sort of nervous about what's going to happen, but hopefully the Redskins can get the job done. And the Thursday night game, the Falcons and the Saints. A division game. All 3 division games this week, actually, on Thursday at least. Then you got the Giants and the Eagles on Sunday. The 49ers and the Buccaneers. That's going to be another game. It's so terrible that it's going to be close. The Patriots and the Jets. The Raiders and the Ravens. The Jaguars and the Bills. The Seahawks and the Panthers. The Browns and the Bengals. The Cardinals and the Chargers. The Dolphins and the Colts. The Steelers and the Broncos. Sunday night, the Packers and the Vikings. And then Monday night, the Titans and the Texans. Once again, that was our Week 11 preview. Those were your Week 12 matchups. And we're moving on to our next segment. CJ, I know you have a lot to talk about college football breakdown-wise, but Maryland should have won that football game against Ohio State. That was a pretty darn good football game.
No, it was not. It was not a good football game because Ohio State won. But that's okay. Because I don't understand how you lose that game. When you score a touchdown, with, I think it was 1:30 left in the game. Ohio State has no timeouts left. They have to drive 80 yards down the field to score a touchdown. And what do? You commit two pass interference penalties and a face mask penalty on the quarterback. What are you doing? They have no timeouts. They have no timeouts whatsoever. They literally have 80 yards, no timeouts, in 1:30 left. And you face mask the quarterback. You deserve to lose this game every single step of the way because you are undisciplined and you do not know what you are doing. I don't care if your school has been under controversy for the entire season. You guys want to go to a bowl game? Good luck this week because you got to go up to Happy Valley now and play Penn State, who wants to prove everybody wrong and finish this season out. Because guess what? You got to have 6 wins to make a bowl game, and you only have 5 right now, and now you have to go up and play Penn State. Good luck. You should have won this last game because now your season may be over and you may not be heading to a bowl game because of your undisciplined team and your terrible play calling. You call 3 inside zones at the 1-yard line, what happens? You don't score. And on top of that, you get a terrible pass interference penalty that was way over the receiver's head. Uncatchable ball.
Two of them.
Yes, 2 of them actually. One on another drive. But yeah, completely way over the player's head.
I think it was one by each team.
That's right. But terrible call. So you get 3 more plays. The only reason you scored a touchdown to gain the lead, the dude fumbled the ball into the end zone. The receiver picks it up. So it's a touchdown. And then what happens? That whole shabam, what I just talked about, and how you're undisciplined and you don't deserve to win. And now you got to go play Penn State Nittany Lions. Good luck because it's not going to happen.
And it ended the last play of the game, a 2-point conversion that failed. They should have kicked the field goal, tied it up or whatever, and sent it to second overtime. But no, You're probably going to disagree. You're probably going to disagree, but that's just my opinion. Like, you start from the 25 in college. It's not like you have the whole field like the NFL. They should have kicked the field goal. They should have went to double overtime, and Maryland should have won that football game.
That's the thing, though, Josh. You already gave up 52 points in the game. Why on earth would you try and put your defense back out there? That makes no sense. You're trying to put your defense back out there and say, hey, guys, have some confidence. They may only get a field goal out of this. That'll only make it 55 points, and now we just have to score a touchdown on one of the best defenses in the country. No, you go for 2 in that situation, and I like the call, but guess what? You should have won the game with a minute left in the game, but nope. You have an undisciplined defense and an undisciplined team. Oh, look, we have controversy. So we're going to make it seem like, oh, we're not the bad guys. Guess what? You're going to lose this week against the Nittany Lions because you guys just couldn't finish it out. And you're probably not going to go to a bowl game.
I know Patrick has a take on this because he's a Penn State fan.
As much as Maryland, in their own right, probably should have won this game if they didn't shoot themselves in the foot. And I'm going to go with CJ. I agree with the call. If you're already in the midst of a season that's already controversial, you've had a bunch of issues, why not? If you're in that situation against the Ohio State and why not? Why not give it a shot? And let's be honest, if your guy catches the ball, you win. Like, you were one play away from winning. No matter how difficult, no matter how many times you shot yourselves in the foot, it all comes down to if you catch the ball or not. It's simple fundamentals, and you didn't do it. Now, looking into what Penn State and Ohio State, I think this looks badly more on Ohio State. Penn State is on their own ride. They got to play Maryland, and they play it in Happy Valley. They have a great advantage. And you're playing a team coming off of giving everything they got against one of the best teams in the country. Now, Ohio State, you're coming off a giant fight against a team that you should have beat by 3 or 4 touchdowns. Easy. And now you got to go play your biggest rival, who's on a tear right now, especially defensively. You just wasted so much energy on a team you should have beat by 4 touchdowns. So why in the world should Maryland be worried right now? It should be Ohio State being worried right now. You got to go play one of the top 4 teams in the entire country coming to your stadium right now, and you just wasted all your energy on a team that you should have beaten. So I think Ohio State's in a worse situation right now than Maryland because they have everything to lose right now. They've been called underrated all year long. They've had so many issues, and they've been upset already, and they almost just got upset a second time. So I'm not worried about Maryland. They're on their own journey. It's Ohio State trying to live up to the Ohio State name that's in more trouble.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. That was a great explanation, and it was, man, what a game. That was probably the game of the week in college football, unless CJ has some others that I will let him talk about.
Well, I think West Virginia losing to Oklahoma State was another one because now this game next week is going to make it 10 times better. Oklahoma now has to go to West Virginia. West Virginia has nothing to lose now because they already have 2 huge losses on the season now. And now they're going to face a good offense with Kyler Murray against, as I said, the epitome of a team that tries to outscore people and just letting go of their defense because they know their defense can't stop anybody. West Virginia, I'm saying that they're going to win this game, even though they're going to be down in the polls. I still think West Virginia can beat this team, because it's going to be at West Virginia, and they got nothing to lose now. They know that they're not going to the college football playoff. Oklahoma still has a chance to go to the college football playoff, but they're going to try and make every single stop that they can to make sure that that doesn't happen. The next game I do want to have a little joke about was the Citadel versus Alabama. At the half, Citadel was putting up a fight on the old Crimson Tide, tied at 17-17. Guess what? They lost 50-17, of course.
You know Nick Saban's going to come out there and He's going to put a game plan.
You're going to get the best shot that Alabama's got at halftime. This ain't Appalachian State versus Michigan upset. No, the Citadel had no chance in that. UCF gets the most prestigious show in college football game day, comes down to Orlando, Florida, and visits the Golden Knights.
The national champions. And they got it done against Cincinnati, and now they're ranked number 8 in the college football polls right now. Should be number 1. No, I'm playing.
No, they should not, but they are now the highest they've ever been in their school history. But for me, they're still not going to make the college football playoff. Texas pulled off a stunner against Iowa State because Iowa State is the kryptonite of the Big 12. As I said, they beat West Virginia earlier this season, and I was surprised because Texas has had a rough season. They started off great after beating Oklahoma, but after that, they had fallen off. This past weekend of college football, there wasn't as much of exciting games as there going to be this weekend because this is rivalry weekend. Ohio State versus Michigan, Oklahoma versus West Virginia, Clemson versus South Carolina. No, that's not going to be as good of a game, but we're going to get some good games this weekend because this is for the college football playoff. This is the last chance you got. Notre Dame, Alabama, Clemson, and Michigan are the top 4 teams right now, and Michigan could fall off, and Oklahoma may get the bid in, or Alabama could lose a heartbreaker in the Iron Bowl to Auburn. Who knows? But this weekend of college football will be great. This past weekend wasn't the best, but I'll have a lot more insight from this weekend because it's going to be a good weekend of college football.
All right. Patrick, any college football scores you want to run down? All right. He's good. So, wow. 91 minutes of pure sports talk. That was great. I think we need to wrap it up now, but do we have any last thoughts? CJ, any last thoughts?
No, my voice is pretty much gone, Josh.
Yeah, I know you wanted to say something, Pat.
I mean, I had a lot of fun. Hopefully I can be on here a couple more times when I get done with school.
Definitely. Most definitely. This is like the Three Musketeers here. You're just as good as your brother, by the way.
I'm more of just observation. He's probably more of pure statistics than I am.
Yeah, but I wanted to point out something, CJ, when he said Martinsburg and Sharando. Patrick, you were the quarterback who went out and beat Martinsburg at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was great.
That was a glass box of emotions, I'll tell you what. But yeah, I mean, we talked about how some teams just have other teams' numbers, and Martinsburg's has had our number for years, and I'm just blessed that they didn't get me in 2015. So it wasn't easy, but we got it done, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, but it was really great having you on the podcast, and CJ, as always, one of the best co-hosts. But Patrick, we're definitely going to get you on the show more, and I think we're going to wrap it up here. I think 93 minutes is good enough unless you have any more to talk about. Yeah, I was just joking. But anyways, thank you so much once again for tuning into the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast. Make sure you shoot us an email, any questions or comments for the podcast, kirbyonsports@gmail.com, our Facebook @KirbyOnSportsPodcast, our Twitter @KirbyOnSports, and our brand new Instagram page. Make sure you go out and follow @Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast. Thank you once again to Dave Johnson, voice of the Washington Wizards, for making our intro. Appreciate you, as always, Mr. Johnson. And that is all the time we have for this episode of the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast. Make sure you catch me and CJ next week for next week's edition of the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast. Until next time, we say so long and have a great Thanksgiving. Good night.